Good morning, bus riders. Welcome back to your favorite, to the best, to the one and only On the Bus podcast. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for joining in for us for episode 73. We got the team over from Jaws Podiatry, Jeff Shub and Doctor Abraham Wagner. We got a jam-packed show for you guys. We got a quick information, tidbits, housekeeping, whatever you want to call it, whatever we call it over here. And to fill you in, guys, we just finished touring South America. We had some big updates, finalizing some dates, finalizing some information. But there's information, there's videos, there's content out there we're distributing, we're working on, we're getting out, and we're collaborating with people from all over the internet, people who've been on the show, people who haven't been on the show, and it's really exciting. It's really exciting to, connect with people in this community of content creation, people who are, interested in creating stuff for themselves and creating a life for themselves through their own stories and through their own lives. We're super proud of all the people we got to collaborate with and super excited to meet the people we have never even come across yet. So everybody who's out there, if you are interested, please hit us up at onthebuspodcast.com, onthebuspodcast@gmail.com. Go check out our YouTube page at On The Bus Podcast. We got plenty of videos. We've tried Isabella grapes. They're called Isabella grapes, and god damn it, they're good grapes. If you haven't had Isabella grape, you haven't lived yet. Go check out where you can get these Isabella grapes. We've had them in Colombia. We had them down in Chile. You got to get on a bus to South America to find these grapes for yourself. They're delicious. They're incredible. And they make for some great wine. Speaking of wine, you got to get some Carbonara. Oh, the Carbonara. You can't beat the Carbonara. It's just the best wine. But anyways, guys, that's On The Bus Podcast. Thank you, everybody who's asked. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. You hit that like button if you haven't yet. Gosh darn it. God damn it. If you haven't, make sure you get on that. We really appreciate it, and thank you for all the support. And if we can steal that 5-star review from you, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you from doing it, and we're going to be thankful for it. Now, let's get into today's guests. We have Doctor Abraham Wagner, a.k.a. Dr. ToeJam, Jeff Shub, TheUrbanBarefoot of Jaws Podiatry, a foot and ankle practice specializing in preventative podiatry. Their YouTube channel is known for viral videos on ingrown toenails. Some interesting things. They like to call it the pimple popping of the 2010s. People are fascinated by it. Their videos are pretty far out there. I can't believe people have nails growing horizontally out of their foot. It's absolutely bonkers. And as the barefoot movement begins to sweep America, Dr. Wagner and Jeff are at the forefront of preventative podiatry, helping clients be proactive in the care of their feet and ankles before any issues arrive. The barefoot movement is here to stay. So we get deep into what it is that, walking barefoot really means to an individual. How many nerve sensors are in the bottom of your foot? I think it's up to 8,000. And why is it moving and walking around is so important, not just for the foot, but for the rest of the body and what it can actually be corrected. We also talk about some of these state-of-the-art cutting-edge things that they are doing, such as some stem cell injection and PRP, which is platelet-rich plasma. Got it right that time. So, guys, this one's informative. Get your notepads out, get your notebooks out, and be ready for what these two guys are about to bring to the table. It's a great podcast, a great ride.
If I find my way home, wouldn't it be crazy? Don't you still amaze me? Wouldn't it be crazy?
People. So it's a huge opportunity, and I mean, when it comes to wellness, you just realize it's so important. But I don't particularly like feet or touching feet or looking at people's feet. It's not something that I really enjoy that much.
But now you've just become all feet. I mean, this is what you do.
Yes,
you see him every day. You work alongside this guy
100%.
right here. It's just
and
feet of your life.
And on top of that, I did a lot of research in orthopedic foot and ankle, which is looking at more feet all day. But again, I don't particularly enjoy it. It's just, another one of those things that matter.
Well, guys, welcome to the studio. Welcome on the bus. We got Dr. Jaws over here, Dr. Avi. What would be the proper thing? Because I would just call you Doc.
That works as well.
But for everyone else, what
I go by Abby, ABI.
ABI. Avi? And Jeff?
Jeff. Just
Jeff, a.k.a. Urban Barefoot.
The Urban Barefoot.
Movement or just Urban Barefoot?
Just the Urban Barefoot.
And we were just talking about feet and just going back and forth about, what we even thought about feet. But, if everybody can see right now, D'Amico's got the camera rolling. I mean, look at these feet right here. We're all barefoot. Oh. What do you got on?
I got the Skinners.
The Skinners on.
The Skinners on.
Those are fascinating. I've seen a few. I've seen Jeremy, Coach Jeremy. That was a 63, but You got these Skinners on. I mean, do those things keep your feet clean at all when you're walking down the street?
Absolutely.
They
Walking
look
around?
like socks, but they're
They are. Actually.
Yeah, so the material on it it's waterproof, puncture proof. I mean, you could jump on glass with those things and you'd be absolutely fine.
Really? Because I'm gonna try that.
Hey, when we got their media kit, there was a guy jumping on glass. So that's all the evidence I have. I haven't tried it myself, but those things are amazing. I do everything in those now.
And what is that to promote right there?
So, the whole concept of barefoot is just about strengthening and creating mobility in your feet. And the way to do that is by not supporting them. They don't need to be supported. They were made perfectly. They're as the quote that they always talk about, Da Vinci, the foot is a masterpiece of art and engineering. It's just perfect the way it is. You don't need to put cushion and, this technology and the Vapor Max, this and the other things. They're not necessary. So the concept is you just protect the foot, keep it from becoming injured. And then apart from that, let it do what it was meant to do.
You're like the George Costanza foot models right
Yep,
here. Yeah.
100%.
No hand model, but you get the foot down pat. And take us through the history, okay? Because we're thinking about where shoes developed. I mean, we're talking going back. Civilization, Mesopotamia, we got sandals, we got straps. A lot of Israeli guys, they still rock those mandals. I'm not about them. Can't stand them. Oh, maybe they're the only people that can rock the mandals. But how did we evolve or the evolution of the shoe, an evolution of requiring to have cushion in our feet on a daily basis, whether it was sports or business. I mean, people still wear with a little wooden frame or wooden platform on the bottom of their shoe.
Yeah.
Looks not uncomfortable at all, but that's business.
So I've done a little bit of research on it, and a lot of it is just gaps that I'm filling on my own through my own hypotheses. But, the shoe really started as a status symbol, the shoe that we think of. The sandals probably had been around longer, but they were sort of the sort of Hirachi design that we talked about. What these elite runners from these little tribes around the world, these probably existed. But the shoe itself was a status symbol. If you could afford to put something on your feet, you would, and that would differentiate you from everybody else, right? So it was never about what it did for you. It was more about what it did for your image, right? And then that was just this, it I guess sort of snowballed into this place where we are today, where it's still about status and it's not about what it's doing for you, physically, emotionally. It's really just about what it's doing for you in other people's eyes. You have the newest Adidas, the newest this, the newest that, the Yeezys. And the funny thing is that I used to be one of those people. I used to have all of the coolest, newest shoes. I would buy them, I would sell them, and I would use them. And, again, I thought that I was doing myself, I was doing something good for myself. But the truth is that now looking back, I guess I was blinded, just like, everybody else kind of right now.
It's interesting you say it as a status symbol. The better off I am, the more shinier or brighter or more colorful thing I can put on my feet to draw attention to myself. And of course, the more colorful, the more bright, the more money it's going to cost. And depending on who has money, they're going to be able to put something on their feet. But then that would play into, I think, the whole idea of healthcare, and healthcare being a practice where, it's not there to actually fix you. It's there to make you come back, and almost like on a reoccurring system or platform, whatever you want to call it.
It's funny you mention that, because one of my sort of go-to speeches when it comes to healthcare, and the reason why I chose not to be a sort of integral part of healthcare, rather on the fringe or on the administrative side, is because if you look at a human on a spectrum of dead to optimal, like everything like supercharged, like sort of how Dave Asprey talks about headstrong, like putting in implementing all of these different things to get you to here. So like, let's say you're in the middle right now, or wherever you are. Healthcare is everything that happens from where you are now to dead, right? They try to keep you in that spectrum so that they keep charging you, right? Fee for service, which means every time you come in, something gets done.
It's like reactive. It's reactive versus proactive.
You pay for it, and their incentive is to keep you in there so that you keep coming back, right? And keep spending money. Wellness is everything that happens from where you are now to that optimal, that it's an unreachable place, but a place that you're always striving to get to. So, when it comes to our practice, we now cover the entire spectrum of people wherever you are in that point. But our goal now is to try to get you to that positive future state and away from our office. That's what we call now preventative podiatry, which is surprisingly a new term. We looked up the domain name and it was available, so we snagged it.
It's all about snagging domain names these days.
Preventativepodiatry.com. It's
that pretty much tells you what people are, that's what people are thinking. That's their thought process, and I think it's really important. Just like there's preventative cardiology, there's preventative, there's just other subspecialties in medicine. I think this is one of those subspecialties that's going to really, it is currently, we're seeing more and more of it. Historically we used to do a lot of preventative, let's just say amputation prevention, patient with diabetes, diabetics, brittle patients. And it's not only, we don't only include those, that demographic, but we're seeing more and more that I think there's a huge niche in preventative podiatry across the board. So it's very exciting.
Walk us through what the difference between preventative podiatry that you guys are really adding in and providing now compared to what you were doing before then. What's some differences?
That's an excellent question. I think it's based on a patient per patient basis,
Absolutely.
so to speak. But between Jeff and I and the entire team, we're able to cater a specific treatment / wellness plan. Whether it's short-term, mid-term, or long-term, to make sure that we maximize the patient's or potential to, like Jeff said, get out of that that point between, let's just say, B and C instead of A and B. So, but it's every patient's different, and it's kind of like an a la carte menu. What can we do to really take that patient and maximize his or her improvement?
Yeah, it's about figuring out how to keep them away from our office, which is sort of ironic, right? You're running a business. These people are paying you to come see you, and we're trying to keep them away. But we see the value in that. I mean, healthcare more and more is trying to move into that space. It's called value-based versus fee-for-service. But there's no model for that in podiatry. There's no real... There's no structure in place to help the podiatrist figure out, okay, what is my incentive to keep people healthy? It's just we understand it because we see the world differently than most doctors do. But if you look in the primary care model, now what they're doing is the insurance company says, all right, you take care of 100 people. So I'm going to pay you this all hypothetical numbers. I'm going to pay you $100 per person per month, and anything that happens to them, it's your responsibility. So you understand how that works now, right? So their incentive is, let's keep this person healthy and away from our office so we don't have to spend, we keep the sort of value stream that as minimum as possible. But, obviously, if you put that off in the short term and just not see them, they might end up in the hospital, and that's just going to crush their bottom line, right? Like these days, a patient ending up in the hospital is a crusher for these companies. By companies, I mean primary care groups.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you both just touched on. It's how I look at the system. It's just not really. Oh shit! I completely lost that point right there. It flew over my head.
Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's a broken system. That's part of the problem, unfortunately. And
there's a lot of factors at play, but the way that healthcare exists now cannot continue. I mean, it's just not possible.
What's the whole idea of a la carte? Like, okay, that I can go in, and that the options are there, like what you guys specified. If someone wants to go in, or even tailoring, that was the point. Tailoring a certain system to a certain patient. Because I think the average doctor visit is 30 seconds, and if we're talking regular primary care when you go into office.
It's very, very short.
That's the whole analogy I have. It's just when people come in, it's like, okay, what's going on? Is everything healthy? Are you doing this? Is your piss yellow? Is it white? Is it clear? Is it red? What's going on? No one's ever honest. No one's up front. They have the person they can be the most honest with. They have a whole patient-doctor confidentiality. but then no one is honest about it. The doctor is trying to base everything off of you not telling him the truth, and then it's just broken. All he can do is prescribe you X, Y, and Z, or tell you got to eat more of this and less of that.
You're lucky if you find a doctor who can actually tell you correctly, eat more of this and less of that, because they're by and large misinformed,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
My doctor visits are never just 10 seconds. I mean, I milk it for about a half hour.
The mindset of the consumer too is a huge problem. Like, we don't want to go to the doctor until something's wrong. So once you can change the mindset of the consumer, then the consumer will be like, okay, it's time to go to the doctor for a checkup. It's time to go to the doctor to look and see if I'm doing things correct, instead of time to go to the doctor to, oh, I have this huge pain, I need to figure out how to fix it.
So that's where concierge medicine is really seeing a lot of success.
What's concierge medicine?
Basically, you pay a monthly or yearly fee for essentially the doctor's phone number. But the truth is that creates a psychological experience where you don't have to think, oh God, I got to go to the doctor now, and they're going to charge me this and that and the other thing. What you pay this yearly fee, and then you sort of pay for this relationship with your physician, where you can feel comfortable just showing up and not being charged every time. They do bill your insurance, but I don't think you get, it just makes the relationship a lot better. So I mean, there's a ton of factors at play, like I mentioned in healthcare. There's, and the psychological that you're talking about is huge. And, it's kind of hard to say, oh, well, I think I'm going to get sick in a month from now, so I should go to the doctor today and get checked out. And then there's the other side, was like, oh my God, I think I'm getting sick. Like the hypochondriacs, I think they're always sick. And
the WebMD people?
Yeah.
Don't show me WebMD.
Let's not go down that path. That's a whole other one. But, again, healthcare needs to figure out how they're going to offer true value to people, and how they're going to make sure that, they help to reduce the spending for the whole system, because it's just a downhill slope right now.
Well, how do you guys tap into that? Because I'm sure people, again, don't want someone coming in their private lives and telling them, we see that in politics, someone saying hey, I don't need this person in this part of the country telling me how to live my life or how to do this. So, I mean, where do you guys, tailor a layer of responsibility, to say, hey, listen, you need to be doing this because you're putting too much stress on a certain area of your body, especially if we're talking about the feet or the legs, because, I mean, everything's connected, and inflammation in the hamstrings might be causing some problems in the Achilles tendon and vice versa.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's just the power of digital and social media. We just continue to educate, because I think education is of utmost importance. Some people are just not educated at all, they don't even know. And there's people who are incorrectly educated, so misinformed. And we're just trying to, for all those people, for those who don't know, and for the ones who know the wrong things, just trying to give them the right information, so that, because once you know the truth, then it's your responsibility to either act on it or, ignore it and knowingly, sort of just forget about taking care of yourself.
Well, what are some new, tools or advanced sort of things that are coming out in foot health that are
we got a bunch of gizmos and gadgets
right,
in the studio.
So I saw you guys doing PRP. I've seen some of the things in your videos.
Yeah, so PRP is actually, it's not a new thing, but it's something that until very recently hasn't gotten a lot of attention. We love PRP because it's such a natural treatment. I mean, sometimes, we try to be as hands off as possible in terms of taking as little action as we can to help the person get better, right? Educate them and give them stretching and different things to do. But sometimes you need to intervene. There's an acute problem, there's an injury, there's a tear or some severe pain that needs to get worked on. And PRP is one of these tools that, it's not drugs, it's not surgery, it's taking something from your body, extracting the beneficial pieces of it, and putting it back in. So basically, you draw blood from the patient, a tube.
PRP,
platelet-rich plasma. So you draw blood from the person, you spin it in a centrifuge, and there's a certain part of the blood that
the
has
yellow stuff. You pull out the platelets.
Yeah, it's so the plasma is like the sort of water of the blood, right? The blood has many components. Plasma is the liquid component. Then there's red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, and different factors, different molecules that exist in the blood. So what you do is you spin it, and then that helps it all separate out. And you take the plasma, which is the liquid part, and the platelets, which are these little cells that help in healing, stay in the plasma. And those platelets have what they call growth factors, which are basically chemicals that help signal the body, like, okay, something's wrong here. We need to fix this here. Like, we need to like send everything we got to go work on this area.
Yeah, they're great with inflammation. I think Regenerative is one that's done in the knee. Is it a similar practice?
Regenerative?
Yeah, I know Tiger Woods, Peyton Manning, a lot of those guys, they would fly to Germany, Kobe Bryant, when it initially started happening. And again, I think it's, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but the process of, sending those blood cells or injecting it in the area, so replicating kind of inflammation so the body knows it has to send everything over there.
The only difference is the reason why they go to Germany is because they sometimes either not pamper, but they're able to manipulate actually and include some other, solutions or, vitamins and things that are not FDA cleared or approved for that matter here. So, a lot of people leave the States to do some of these procedures. But yeah, all the pro athletes have gone overseas to do some of these procedures, and they work very well.
So we'll call this category regenerative medicine, right? There's a whole slew of things in this field, and some of them are able to be done in the U.S. and others are not. So stem cell is one of them. This is not stem cells. Stem cells is a very specific process where you take out certain cells from certain places and then you sort of re-inject them or replace them in other areas. We do some of that also. We actually take fat cells, which have a lot of stem cells. We do a little mini liposuction with a plastic surgeon, and then we mix that in with the PRP into those areas if we feel that the patient really needs a huge boost of healing in a certain area.
For what reason would someone require something like that? If they're,
in respect to clinical presentations?
Yeah, in respect to the foot, like what would...
we see,
what issues?
So many issues. Whether
Doc, just make sure the mic's up. If you look that way, just talk.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Good thing we can edit. Good thing we can edit.
Oh boy. Need some.
There you go. Yeah, just when you're like facing that way, and then now the noise goes the other direction.
So I'll stay here.
Yeah, if you could.
So we definitely see a lot of different clinical presentations, including but not limited to heel pain, any tendinitis, Achilles tendinitis, fractures, you name it, arthritis, end stage arthritis, early stage arthritis, and it really depends on the clinical presentation. Depending on every clinical presentation, we basically cater a specific treatment plan for the patient. Just like Jeff was saying before, once we assess the patient and we decide whether it's something more conservative, we start conservative treatment with the patient, whether it's physical therapy, stretching, anything very, very just very basic.
Yeah.
If that doesn't work, then we go down the algorithm to something a little bit more effective, whether it be the PRP. Usually, PRP is very effective as a conservative treatment. But, in what we see in the office, heel pain as at the top of the list. 5 out of 10 people once in their life will have heel pain, also known as plantar fasciitis or plantar fasciosis, which is an inflammation of the longest ligament of the foot. And, that in conjunction with all the other things that we're doing, some of the more, newer, quote-unquote stuff and other treatments, we're getting really, really great results, short-term and long-term. So, in the world of, like Jeff was saying, in the world of regenerative medicine, we have PRP, we have stem cell therapy. I want to make a clarification out to the community/public. There's also something called amniotic therapy, amniogenic therapy. And this is a procedure where basically mothers donate some of their amniotic fluid, amniotic fluid.
Some people drink that, yeah.
Yeah, and then there are people that eat their own placentas as well. But nonetheless, the amniotic fluid, and the science behind it, essentially, the amniotic fluid contains very primitive cells. The baby, when it's in the womb, is nourished by the amniotic fluid in these developmental stages. So what these mothers do is they donate. Everything's done, obviously, very sterile. And they basically, and it's an entire process. They basically, take this amniotic fluid, they cryopreserve it, and they, after a certain, very thorough process, there's doctors that re-inject that into the problematic areas. But I want to be very clear to the public that, amniotic, these amniotic injections are not living cells. These are not stem cells. Once you cryopreserve these cells, they die. So, when we talk about regenerative medicine, it's very important that everyone understands that these cells need to be alive. They need to be living, just like PRP and just like stem cells living, whether it's in the fat or in the bone marrow. So we like to, disclose that to all the patients that we see. And it's very important, just like we were talking about before, educating the community, educating the public about anything. It's very important for them to understand that, amniogenic therapy, amnio is not, these are not living cells.
Yeah. So I think the point is that a lot of people come in asking about these things because they heard about it from their doctor, from the internet, WebMD, whatever. But and a lot of doctors will end up selling it to them as that because, again, going back to the terrible state of healthcare, doctors these days are really incentivized to just give people what they want instead of what they need. So we like to always be very clear about what things are and are not. But going back to my side of the world, you look at these cultures where people don't wear shoes and they don't have those problems. They don't have plantar fasciitis.
Yeah.
They don't have Achilles tendonitis. They don't have the posterior tibial tendon dysfunction. These things they're a problem of what they call the shod world. Shod is like a term for people who wear shoes or the act of wearing a shoe.
I'm so shot.
It's
I was
slightly derogatory, but I'll allow it.
I'm a recovering shod. So let's I guess let's dig into a little bit to shoes, right? So again, like I said before, shoes are a cast. Like you break your arm, you put a cast on. They among other things, among other problems that they of what they are. But if you've ever had a cast on, which I'm sure, I mean, if you're athletic and you've had some sort of break or strain at some point, when you come out of the cast, how do you feel?
They were all on my ankles, so.
It's much weaker. I mean, just because I did not have the chance to move my foot around different spaces, and didn't actually even get to have touch.
Right.
Like,
And
especially it was in my hand, so I couldn't write.
Lose muscle.
It was great before a test. I had to write.
How was your range
test.
of motion?
Oh, it was terrible.
Exactly.
I mean, it was just because you can't move that place in that cast. I mean, it holds everything in place. But I mean, that's a proper procedure.
So now imagine 10, 12, 14 hours a day, every single day for 20-something years, 30-something years, 50 years. What do you get? I mean, you get a block of cement on the bottom of your body. It doesn't move.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't. It's stiff and it's weak. So basically, you're sort of carrying around these blocks of cement.
I mean, you watch people's range of motions in their ankles and their Achilles tendons, and it's like.
Yeah. And one of the things when you wear a cast is, as an athlete, next month you're getting an injury somewhere else because you had an bursitis, you have something like this, and then all of a sudden your right hip is out the next month. Yeah, 'cause you're compensating. So who knows what compensation problems we have from wearing shoes are inside.
It's funny because, and people, I've said this to people before, and they sort of brush me off like, yeah, sure, whatever. But almost any overuse, pain, injury, just general knee pain, things that you can't really, there's not an event that happened that you could say, this is why my knee hurts or my hip hurts. I can pretty much, find the source at your feet. And mostly because of what you're putting on your feet. You know, shoes these days, for the most part, are not made with the foot in mind. They're made with money in mind. Like, how can we make more money off of this? So I brought this shoe from the outside, not from somebody in this room.
Not one of us.
Just to show, to sort of prove a point, right? Like, look how hard it is to fold this, right? It's essentially immobilization. That's what's going on. Not only that, but there's a huge lift right between the back and the front. I say huge because to me now these days this is huge, because it really is. Like, this is nothing, right? This is zero. This is called zero drop, which means that there's no difference in height between your heel and your toes. Right? It's completely flat, the way your foot was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
This is a huge lift. And what happens here is that you're telling your body that you're walking downhill all day, every day. So when you walk downhill, you have to adjust your body in certain ways to sort of maneuver through the downhill. And a short downhill run is great for you, but every single day, all day, it creates these moments in your knees, in your hips, in your back, all the way up to your cervical spine that over time create overuse injuries. You know, the arthritis, the pain, you know, all these pains, most of them are from this, right? And then on top of that, what we talked about now is the cushioning on the shoe. So your foot has all of these amazing nerves, more than anywhere in the body. Per square inch, you have more nerves in the bottom of your foot. When you wear a cushion, you turn all those nerves off. So knowing where you are in space, knowing how hard you're hitting the ground, knowing feeling the vibrations of the ground, all your body's capable of doing that, but you can't. Like, our bodies for the most part can't. All of us who've been wearing shoes for our whole life. So actually, this mat that I brought is it's made specifically and researched in order to help bring those nerves back to life.
Tell them a little bit about the mat.
So I actually found out about this mat a little while ago, and what we do is we try to test all different products from around the world that are relating to this sort of barefoot mindset. And the mat was created by Dr. Splicall up in New York. She's a podiatrist who's a sort of movement expert, and you know, her work is pretty fascinating. But she figured out that creating this specific material can help your feet start to regain that sensitivity that it needs. You know, when there's a concept called the Two-Point Discrimination, which means it's your ability to discern two things, 2 points. Like, if you had two little needles, how far are they apart from each other? It's about 1 millimeter in the hand, and it should be the same in the foot. Your feet and your hands have that same sort of tactile ability. But if you know, you can test this. If you put your hands on this mat, you will feel something very specific, and it'll feel sort of very, very rough and very textured. But when you put your feet on it, it doesn't feel the same way. It feels dull, right? It feels kind of like muted.
Those calluses, man. It's
when you put your hand on, it's like these little mini spikes. It's oddly satisfying. It's very oddly satisfying. Yeah. But then you put your feet and you can just feel how it's much more dulled out than when you put your hands on it.
And they should feel the same. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to be able to feel them the same way. So the purpose of this and walking on this is to sort of turn those nerves back on, get them firing again, and you know, train them back to life. She also makes a shoe insert that you could have in your shoe all the time, which I think is really cool.
Is that considered an orthotic or?
So it's an insert because it's something that goes inside the shoe, but it doesn't provide any support. It's literally like a flat piece of material.
So it's a replacement for the senses, but not for foot support.
Not support.
Okay.
It's like an IntelliCert.
IntelliCert. Smart car, smart shoes.
Yeah.
Smart shoes.
Smart liners.
I mean, that's a big thing that, you know, I remember as an athlete, you know, I have flat feet, but everybody's like, well, you got to get an arch in your foot. Your arch is gone. You got to, what is the importance of having an arch? I think I was at a gym the other day and people were like, oh man, you got to work on this arch right there. Is there anything really that I would need to do to put that arch back in? I mean, I jump pretty high, I run pretty fast. I don't have that information. Give me a little foot assessment right now.
You know, it's funny.
Asking.
It's funny you bring that up because it was about 3 years ago. I treated a professional NFL athlete, and he was a running back. And what was interesting is that he had one of the flattest feet I've ever seen. And you know, he basically came in because not because of that. He came in for something else. But nonetheless, you know, we started talking about how flat his feet were. And he was basically saying that he loved being, you know, when he played, no socks. He really, really liked the feel of, you know, obviously feeling the cleat against the plantar fasciitis, the bottom of the foot.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was very interesting. And just like, you know, Olympians, runners, professional runners, I hear that a lot. So, you know, I guess the body is really in tune with, you know, what they're feeling inside the shoe.
Okay.
You know.
So the arch is a really interesting sort of piece of engineering. The arch, the obviously the bones are what sort of make the arch, but the arch is actually shaped by the muscles. The muscles are what make it the way it is, and it has all of these really cool elastic properties that help you recycle energy as you move. So, you know, it's like a bunch of little rubber bands in there that help you to take that energy that you use for that one step and bring it back into the next one. So it's about creating efficiency. No other animal has an arch. Right, there's only a few of us that walk on 2 feet or on two legs, 2 limbs, but we're the only ones that have the arch in the foot, and that it has a very specific purpose. It goes back to the reason why we're around now and not the Neanderthals. So when the human beings first came to this earth, the Neanderthals were also there, and it was sort of a competition. The Neanderthal was stronger, faster, smarter. They had tools already way before the humans did. So the question is, why are we here, and why are they not? Why are they gone if they were a superior being?
We like killing people, so that's what gave us the edge. We were better murderers.
Well, they were actually better at killing us than we were.
They were
then.
too?
Yes. So, but the point is,
was it the inbreeding then?
There were
the crossbreeding between species.
I read something fascinating about how we evolved the ability for like bipedal. We evolved the ability to be able to run.
Correct.
And running with no shoes specifically allowed us to find, I don't know, maybe carcasses much easier to find to go after animals or something.
But we can chase down like any animal in a hunt. We can outrun anything.
Yeah. So there's a few books that talk about this, but the evolutionary biologists all pretty much agree that the earliest humans hunted by what's called persistence hunting, which means you basically chase an animal for miles and miles and miles until they basically keel over and die and you win. The Neanderthals had tools and were stronger and faster, but the animals always had some advantage over them, and their hunting tools weren't accurate enough to make enough kills to eat.
Fascinating.
So the human had that ability to hunt animals efficiently because we could run and we can endurance run. The Neanderthals could not endurance run. But there are very few animals that can do it, and the properties that we have because we run on 2 feet, no other animal has, including the arch creating so much efficiency. There are other efficiency points in the body. I haven't even learned all of them yet. I obviously focus mostly on the feet, so that's what I know well. But there are other sort of adaptations that make us really good at long distance running. So you're talking about 15, 20 mile, chasing an animal, and they were really good at that. So, that's what we were built to do. We were built to run. So now if you have a flat foot, okay, you're still gonna be able to sprint fast, and you're still gonna be able to, pivot, move, do these things, but you're not gonna have that efficient recycling. And when it comes to a long distance run, you will probably I hypothesize you will struggle more on that long distance run than somebody whose arch is built stronger and is ready for that type of activity.
We can leave it there. He's faster than me, but I can I got a better arch. I can definitely outrun him. We'll go distance.
You can never keep up
I'm
with me on
going
the soccer
200
field.
miles.
The soccer field, I'm putting up way more miles than
We
you.
can take this outside.
Yes.
So the Tarahumara Indians,
Right.
yeah, I was reading they ran like multiple hundreds of miles. They don't wear shoes. Something about they have incredible arches. It's just very fascinating to me.
Yeah. I mean, they all do. So these sandals are designed, and there's a bunch of companies that do this.
Can you describe them for the audience a little
There's
bit?
no camera. I forgot. So it's basically a piece of rubber. They actually used to use like old tires. These are Vibram soles, but they're
It feels like a thin tire.
it's a very thin like rubber, right? And then there are these straps that are made in a specific way so that they hold the protection securely to your foot, but they offer no support and they don't block any of these like abilities that we talked about before. So it's funny how when the Tarahumara were finally brought into these ultra marathons, 100-mile runs, they started to get sponsorships from the different shoe companies, and they performed so poorly when they were in the shoes that what they started doing was they didn't drop the endorsements, but they would go off the starting block with the shoes on. They would run into the parking lot, change the shoes, and then keep going. And these are all stories that come from the book Born to Run, which is an amazing book. I highly recommend it, just about the history of human endurance running. A very super interesting book. Chris McDougall, I believe, is the author. It's a very popular book. But this company called Earth Runners and other companies, they make this based on what these people used to make for themselves. These are, they obviously handmade their own shoes, sandals, and it was just for protection, and that's it. As minimal as possible. They needed to put something under their foot to protect it from the elements, but to not block their ability to move efficiently and quickly. So that's what these are.
I got one for you because I walk around barefoot, some would say too often. I almost got my toe chopped off in Peru. And
That's a great story.
Almost.
Almost.
You had a
can
toe-
see
you had- you had a
stitching.
toe
I got-
ring?
You got cut from here all the way around to the outside.
I thought you had a toe ring that someone wanted to steal. They were
No,
gonna cut
He
off
would
your
have
toe.
been. It's a great story because at first he had to get his own stitches. They did a horrible job, and we went back. We told this story a bunch of
I had
times.
to go buy
but-
all the products. They gave me a list when I got to the clinic. Said, okay, you need to go buy all the stuff. So I had to go outside the hospital with I'm still limping, my toes sagging off like this. And I had to go buy syringes, and I had to go buy gauze pads and everything outside the hospital, then bring it back in order to get the treatment done. And
That's
then
a great hospital.
The funny thing is when we finally get to Cusco, and he's like, I got to see a doctor about this, and we go there, and the doctor says, oh no, your foot's fine. You have a fungus. So they incorrectly diagnosed him with a toe fungus.
No, she
did, yeah.
misread it. She goes, let's take these stitches out. I mean,
Yeah.
the wound was pretty big at that point. Maybe millimeter.
Yeah,
Centimeter.
it was like your toe was coming off.
Yes, and so they're just like, oh yeah. Keeping it dry is the worst thing. Keeping it dry is the best thing. So we can dry out that wound and it can start patching itself up. He goes, no. It's fungally infected right now, like you mentioned. We need to put some cream inside, some fungus cream, and you just need to hang out with no gauze, no nothing. Just put some cream on it for 2 days, and you'll be good. You'll be ready to go. You climb Machu Picchu in 2 days.
He showed literally 48 hours later. He goes, look at my toe. What do you think? And I'm like, it looks like your toe's coming off.
Then it got
It's
bacteria
soft, wet.
infected.
Yeah.
Like being in the dark in a hostel, not a clean place at all. So I go back to the hospital, and I'm just like, all right, guys, just stitch me up. Like, I don't care what you're gonna say or what you're gonna diagnose me with. We're putting stitches in this. And I got a guy. I'm sitting in a dentist chair at this point, and a guy looking at me. His name's Doctor Kivitz, and he's like, yeah. It looks like we have to go get some plastic surgery right now. We need to re-cut open the wound on the inside to get it bleeding again. So, sounds about right. I see, like,
Sure.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? No. What are your thoughts on this injury? What are your thoughts on this?
He's not allowed to give clinical advice without fully evaluating the patient.
Let's just say the standard of cares are different in different countries.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I said chop it off, but he didn't listen.
yeah. So they re-injected some local anesthetic in between my toes. They started cutting it open again and repatching it up, and I left the stitches in that time for like 6 to 8 weeks. and still here.
There it is.
It kept it looked like it would scab, and it's better today, and then 2 days later, be like, oh no, it's not again.
It was just where it
Fun
was,
experience.
where the padding was, and the toe would always bend right there. So I mean, just getting that
It's a
to
bad
You guys
location.
close
see it
back
all.
up is tough.
You guys see it all.
So again, my point I'm getting to initially with the question, I'm barefoot a lot, So what can I do? I know you guys. Thank you so much for bringing those. What do you call these? Skinners. Bringing these skinners in. But what can I do to prevent these things from happening? Especially I live in New York, a dirty, disgusting, dangerous place. 3Ds.
It's just, put something between you and the ground, but make it as little as possible.
How are Chuck Taylor? Because I mean, those are flat shoes. They got a pretty big pad on the bottom, but
I mean, look, there's nobody perfect is nothing, right? It's absolutely nothing. And then there's the spectrum of from nothing to the new Balenciaga or whatever that they look literally ridiculous. I mean, those shoes look just absolutely ridiculous. But as close as you can get to barefoot, the closer you can get, the better. That's it.
okay.
Dr. Splikal, the woman who invented this mat, talks about even socks. Like socks create even more space between you and the ground, and they'll reduce the nerve firing by that much more, whatever percentage it is. You make up a number. I haven't studied it. I haven't seen a research study that shows it, but just try to be as barefoot as possible. It's funny because everybody is sort of has been making jokes to me because I've been obviously publicly displaying myself.
You've been barefoot in the Yellow Green Farmers Market, around town,
Yeah,
everywhere.
I mean, I lived in New York for 4 years, and I think that, talking about what you would use, I think the Skinners is a really good option. I mean, I've been very happy with using the Skinners here. Obviously not in snow. But I think that, in New York, if the weather cooperates,
Yeah.
I think it would be a great. I think you would definitely benefit a lot using the Skinners.
Yeah.
If you don't want to use any other, any other shoes such as the Vivos or any other.
So there's a few
brands.
select brands that know what they're doing and that really care. Vivo is one that we love. We actually love it so much that we brought it into our office to sell to patients because we truly believe in them, and they make a product that's cool enough that people aren't going to come up and like ask you a million questions. So there's people like you and me, us, that like to talk to people and love these sort of random conversations in the middle of the street, which you will get with some of the alternative footwear, let's say. But the Vivos look like, I mean, it just looks like a shoe that anybody would be wearing, and you wouldn't think.
Rock that with some chinos, some short jeans.
Yeah,
You pull it off.
and they have like 30 different styles, and they even have winter options and trail hiking options and all that. But it's just all about where your comfort level is, and hopefully progressing to less and less. Like I said, people look at me strange when I walk down the street with no shoes on, but there's a big sort of cultural divide happening right now, and it's really sad that it's with this specifically because people look negatively at what's healthy right now. What's healthy is less, right? It's everything that we've talked about. We don't have to go over it again, but the culture of today is about wearing more shoes, and if someone's barefoot, it's like, oh, that's weird. I don't want to bring up any names, but a family member of mine sent me a text saying that
both of yours, right? You guys are related.
Yeah, actually,
Not right now.
this person is a relative, but she sends me this whole long text about how she's concerned about me because I'm walking barefoot everywhere, and I said, look, I love you, I respect your opinion, but I didn't write this back, but at the end of the day, they just don't understand yet. They don't get my point in all of this, which is to
just like anything. I mean, just like anything in what we do, whether it's medicine or not, or not even medicine, education is key. I mean, it's for some people it may be a little bit more challenging than others, but And I know because for the last 10 years I've been doing these regenerative procedures, and still to the day education is the key. If you cannot educate the community, they will not understand, they will not comprehend. Doctors won't be able to understand that either. So the barefoot movement / anything that has to do with barefoot, it's very, very, very difficult. It's kind of like a salmon swimming against the current. You're trying to educate people. People will sort of scratch their heads. People will not really understand what it's about. But it'll take time. But we're doing it.
Yeah, it's like the Gandhi quote. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win at the end. Hopefully,
there's whenever something, I won't say new, but whenever something that's different than what people are doing, there's sort of this I guess groupthink of you're outcast because you're different than everyone else. When I think the groupthink is the problem, because people aren't opening themselves. They're like too conditioned to what other people are doing instead of opening themselves up to something that could really benefit themselves. The same thing happened when me and him started doing ketosis, right? When we were doing the ketogenic diet.
Like 2 or 3 years ago now.
Yeah, it was almost 3 years ago where I started out by trying to tell everyone, and then instead of telling them, they just made fun of me while I'm eating at meals. And then now I come home from this trip and literally everybody's like, yeah, we're doing ketosis. And they had no remembrance of doing
60 pounds, I'm down 50 pounds, down 30 pounds here.
But it doesn't matter if they remember or not, as long as they're healthy or at least like trying something out. And the same thing is, it's going to happen. I feel as if, you know what? People look at you funny. They looked at me crazy, and I'm at the gym. Like, why are people looking at me funny if I'm at the gym with no shoes? You're right. It is the hair clip.
It's the hair clip.
But realistically, 2 years from now, you guys are going to be wearing hair clips and not wearing your shoes. And everyone out there. But we're doing our best in conversations like this, and it's what's going to happen.
I'll try the clip.
Good. See? Well, we're learning from each other today.
It's just the unfortunate reality right now that there's companies with tons and tons of money that are pitching all of the wrong things, and there's no governing body that can say, that can tell these people to stop or issue fines or anything. These people are not.
So true.
Wow.
That's standing up. Yeah.
These people are not regulated by any body.
What would you suggest? Like a regulation body or what other way?
So
What's
the thing
the FDA?
is, right. So like anything that comes in contact with your body outside of clothes and shoes is it's checked. Like someone checks to make sure that this is okay for you. Whether it's vitamins or any procedure, any medical procedures, anything that is done to you or that you consume is regulated, is overseen. Clothing and shoes are not. Clothing, look, whatever. I'm sure one day someone's going to come around and prove to us that clothes are bad or that certain materials are bad, and we have to start thinking differently about them. But whatever. But when it comes to shoes, these are an integral part of your health.
I think it's literally the reason. You guys know this and touched on a little bit, but everyone who has back problems, which is every person over 40 years old, who I always used to feel bad. I'm like, why do these people have back problems? And then I got them. I think they're literally all because of this.
I agree.
Like 95% of people's problems are because it affects the entire chain up their back. It affects their posture, their hips. Like my SI joint is hypermobile literally because of this. It's crazy. Yeah. It's absolutely crazy to think about.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there are a lot of factors, but the one factor that everybody has in common is the shoes and the sort of attention or lack of attention that they give to their feet and their ankles. The foot is so far away from your eyes, out of sight, out of mind. It is a real concept. It's a real habit that humans have. Plus, you're covering them every day with shoes, so people literally don't think about their feet. You see your teeth in the mirror every morning when you brush your teeth, and every time you look in a mirror, so you think about your teeth and you care about your teeth, and you go to the dentist every 6 months and you get them cleaned and you get them taken care of. The feet is those things are there. It's no big deal. They just carry us through life every single day. No big deal. Like let's not give them any attention or focus on them whatsoever.
What are some exercises you would recommend to people?
don't you send me down this path. So I every morning I have this sort of routine that I've started posting. And I go through it's I switch it up every day. There's different things that you can do, just like any exercise routine. You got to switch it up, but and these are all sort of things that I've picked from different people. So I don't want to say that I created this because that would be a lie. But I first start off by sort of I don't know how to word this, but sort of banging out the bottom of my foot, like slapping a little bit just to wake up all the nerves, right? Start to get it engaged, get it moving, right? Get into this. Get the blood flowing. Then the second thing I do is I actually interlace my fingers with my toes. Every finger.
I do this one every day.
Right? And then you start to move your ankle around. Move the ankle in different positions. Get it mobile.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. So you're using the opposing hand to the opposing foot, and then you lock your like you're locking your hands together, but you're locking your hand and your foot.
Exactly. It's like if you were sort of locking your hands, but it's your right hand, left foot, and vice versa. Okay. You could do it sitting on the floor or sitting in a chair. And then from there is when I start to get a little bit creative. Those three things where slapping the feet, interlacing the feet with the toes, the fingers with the toes, and moving the ankle are the core of the morning routine. But then after that, I start to get creative. I start to do some proper posture work of the lower extremity. Start to stretch from my hips down my knees into my foot. There's just a ton of different ways you can stretch and start to work on your feet. A lot of calf raises are excellent. I mean, and then I have the board.
Floorboards.
The board.
In college basketball at Syracuse, we'd have floorboards every day. And trainer, because we all have tendonitis already at like 20 years old, in the back of our knees, on the side of our knees, and anytime that happened, you go stay on there for 5-10 minutes, and it just like anything I felt before was just gone. It was just loose and just.
Yeah, so the slant board, or the barefoot board as we call it, really helps to mobilize that Achilles tendon and the gastroc. That the whole calf is probably the most important muscle group in your body.
Really?
I mean, you are literally standing all the time, and that creates so much power because that muscle literally carries your whole body. I mean, you go like this. You're carrying the weight of your entire body. And every step that you take and every pace on a run, I mean, that muscle works like crazy, and you have to take care of it. You got to show it love. When you're standing on a heeled shoe, you're creating a contracture of that muscle group. You're actually making it shorter. So if you're standing like this every day for a bunch of days, you're telling your body this is the new normal. Mm-hmm. So what the body does is it adjusts and it shortens that muscle. So you're like. So you see, how some people walk like on their tippy toes, like they just.
A lot of people do, yeah.
So
kids is a problem. They've really developed that early.
And you can see, it's so funny. You can see in people, it's very subtle sometimes, but they take a step, and before they're gonna come up for the next one, they take the step and they sort of do one of these, because they're so contracted and so short that you just see them like do this little hop, and then they take the next step.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because from a clinical standpoint, we see just like heel pain, Achilles tendonitis, tendinosis, any degeneration or inflammation of the Achilles tendon. These are specifically, it's a really difficult condition to treat. Why? Because we don't walk on our hands, we walk on our feet. Yeah. And we use it every single day. Just like Jeff was saying, the whole entire complex is made up of the gastrocnemius muscle as well as the soleus, two very, very strong muscles, which make their way down to form the Achilles proper, the Achilles tendon. Extremely strong tendon. So I definitely agree that it's really important to stretch the Achilles and really, really just sort of let it be. Those are in what we do, very, very challenging to get these people much better. It could take weeks, even up to months, depending on the severity of the condition. But just like having the slant board, the barefoot board, I think it's a great tool in the toolbox that we use and that we do recommend.
I'd be
alongside
interested
a lot of other.
to know like sorry for cutting you off. I feel that because I've had lower back pain before, my hips have been tight. Because my hips been tight, my lower back's been tight, my hamstrings have been tight. And I feel like that stems all like those part they called your core. When we're talking about exercising, mobility, movement, and even I feel like the Achilles is attached to those things right there.
Yes.
What brings those things together? Why are they considered your core, and why are they so closely tied that if one's pulling, you're gonna have inflammation in another area, be tight in another area?
It's a chain. I mean, they're all intimately connected. The knee bone is connected to the hip bone. That song. I mean, it's true.
Keep going, sing.
Yeah, no, I think I forgot the rest of it. But they're all intimately connected. So if you are having an issue in one area, it's going to cause a chain reaction, right? And it's going to impact other areas. The question is just which is the weakest link in your chain, and that's where you're going to get the injury, right? Like his could be the plantar fascia, yours could be the Achilles, his could be the low back. It's just about which one is the weakest in you. That's the one that's going to break. That's the link in the chain that will break. So it's just everyone presents differently, but the root cause is the same, right?
Yeah.
It's the immobility.
And I think part of the problem as well is, when you live your day-to-day activities, it's really, really difficult to realize and to identify where, what's causing the problem. You may think that it's, you may have some left knee pain, which is affecting your, the way that you walk, and you're putting more weight into the right ankle, putting more weight into the Achilles, which makes you walk a little bit funnier. It affects your back, and then it affects your contralateral side, your opposite side. So it's really important to identify that specific, that weakest link. At the core of the problem.
And those things are mostly attached. We're talking like just muscles that are pulling on other muscles, or ligaments, tendons. I mean, it just depends on the area. Hip flexor, we're talking is a tendon, is a ligament, or is a muscle.
So the hip flexors there's a few muscles that help to flex the hip, or shorten the angle between your thigh and your abdomen, right? So this is flexion. There's different muscles that do that. Muscles attach to bones, and the way they do that is through tendons. So it goes bone, tendon, muscle, tendon, bone, right? So the way to attach, it's like it's the muscles, like let's say it was a string, and the ends of the strings are the tendons, and they're classified differently because they serve different functions, and they're anatomically different. Like if you look it down to a cellular level, in the muscle belly, you actually have these cells that have their mechanism of action, the way that they shorten to create a contraction. There's all these little blocks that all do their little shortening, and it creates a shortening of the whole thing, and that's how you contract. And the tendons they have some cells, but not really. They're just a lot of collagen and other materials that help to create those attachments to the bone, and they also have certain elastic properties to them. Okay. And they have these really interesting sort of feedback loops or automatic loops that happen when certain conditions exist. So if you super stretch a tendon, it sends a signal through your spinal cord that skips your brain and goes directly back to the muscle, and it tells it to contract so that you don't hyperextend your joint and tear whatever it is. But what ends up happening is, let's say you're in a yoga class and someone's adjusting you, and they pull a little too quick in a certain direction that maybe you're a little tight. That's going to send a signal through your spinal cord quickly back down to the muscle to contract. And if that person's still holding you in that position and you contract your muscle, that's when a tear is going to happen, because there's a limit to how much that muscle can, or how much that tendon can stretch. So you're stretched. All of a sudden there's a signal to your muscle to contract. So you're stretching that tendon even more, and that person's still holding you. Something's got to give. And it's probably not going to be the instructor who's holding you.
Yeah.
Right. unless you have unless you have 100 pounds on them. But that's why there's a lot of tear injuries in yoga.
Really, there's that many that happen in yoga class? 'Cause
Yeah.
I was going to actually ask, we talked about the foot and the sensors that are missing in the foot and not having, that connection, or even talking about the other football player who would play barefoot, so we can get a better feel of the cleat, and especially to the nerve sensors in the bottom of the foot.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that has anything to do with, ACL tears that happen, especially non-contact
100%.
in, whether it's soccer or football? I mean, these guys are just making just a cut or a move, and
Isn't ACL tear always because the foot is
100, almost 100% true, and I'll tell you why. The reason is there's a sort of a term called proprioception, which means knowing where your body is in space, like your brain knowing where your arm is. Like you close your eyes and you know where your arm is because there's that connection. It's called proprioception. When it comes to the lower extremities and the feet specifically, people think that their brain thinks that it's somewhere. That their foot's somewhere, and it's actually in a different place. So let's say you think your foot is here, and actually, I'm gonna plug now my friend Seth Minter. He's on Instagram. He's the foot doctor. Your foot thinks it's here, but really it's here. And then you go to cut, and what happens? Your body was prepared for a different movement than what you gave it.
Interesting.
And that's when the soft tissues are what's gonna happen. But sometimes you even see tibia fractures in these people that weren't even, there wasn't even contact. In basketball, in the Cardinals, right?
It's Louisville Cardinals, and that kid came down and shattered his leg. I mean, the problem terrible
is the problem is when your brain thinks that your foot is somewhere and it's actually somewhere else.
It's happened also, as you know, in the NBA recently. I think it was
Paul George, right?
I think it was Paul.
He had the nasty injury, came down that dunk.
He landed, but he wanted, I think, to go one way, and then it just kind of. He twisted his.
Gives me chills thinking about it.
Yeah,
and it's, what's his name? Who plays for?
Wasn't it the Celtics? I think.
It's Golden State Warriors. He comes off the bench. He's a good 6-man, tall, lanky guy.
Jeremy would know this.
Yeah, Jeremy would know. So a few years ago, he went up for a dunk, and he was like one of those guys that really had the big non-contact compound fractures. He just went up for a dunk, coming down a fast break, nothing special, and just came down, and just the whole leg just flew out.
So it's interesting, right? And there are some of these freak incidents where there's just so much energy that goes through that area that it just like takes everything apart. But for the most part, it's really because you thought you were somewhere, you're actually somewhere else, or like add on top of that, you are wearing this big cushion that doesn't allow your body to feel the vibration of the ground,
so it doesn't know where it's landing.
So you hit harder. Right?
It's like impact injuries, yeah.
So the funny thing is about
how can it know it's landing if you don't know where the sensors are? So you're just over and over every day landing somewhere where your brain can't connect where you're landing.
The funny thing about cushions is that the research that does exist proves that more cushion equals stronger impact forces. So they are saying that the cushion helps protect your foot, but because you're wearing the cushion, you strike the ground harder.
There's a super fascinating story about Cirque du Soleil. Where the Cirque du Soleil story where they, those guys use their feet and they have no problems. And then all of a sudden they added balance beams like under the floor every 4 yards or something. And then they started getting injuries and they couldn't figure out why because the floor looks the same. But their mind didn't know that they were landing on a different type of floor. So they were impacting differently.
Right. So
your brain can figure out where you're impacting. That's crazy.
Right. So let's do this as like a visual experiment, right? Because we're a lot better at understanding visual cues, right? So let's say you were running on ground and all of a sudden there was a patch of like quicksand. So you're running, right? And let's say it all looks the same. What happens when you step your foot in that? You're gonna just cause all sorts of havoc in that lower extremity. You probably will tear something, fracture something. So there's this difference that you can't perceive, right? So you're prepared to perform a certain way, thinking that this is one way, but actually it's something completely different. So in that situation, what was happening is these people are running across the stage, and their body's sensing a certain vibration pattern. And then all of a sudden, when you step over this supported area, you're continuing to do things a certain way, but actually the condition is different. So
fast.
you might not get the injury right in the moment, but if you do it a few times, something's going to happen. And that's one of Emily's stories, where she was working with them and they couldn't figure out why the hell they all started getting injured all of a sudden when they had a perfect injury record. And, you know, their medical records were all sort of perfect. It was one of these really fascinating stories. And all of a sudden, these injuries all started happening because they went to a new stage. So what they did was they ended up changing all of the engineering of the stage to make sure it was all one sort of texture, not texture, but force pattern.
Don't you guys find it fascinating how the subconscious mind plays its effect into this? Like, we're beings whose bodies are impacted by how we think in some minuscule second, where we don't get to sit back and think about the landing and how it's going to go. It literally is just a subconscious thought as we come down.
And there's so many calculations happening inside your brain. That's why, you know, your brain is an incredible, super, like, next level computer, more powerful than any computer that exists anywhere in the world. We just think computers are smarter because there's certain tasks that we can't do really quickly that a computer can.
And
but
vice versa. I mean, we can do so many things that.
But we can do we do these calculations in our brain that no computer could ever do in the amount of time that we do. You know, every single step is is a balance of so many different movements, and the visual, the audio, the sensory. There's so much going on, and your brain is computing all these data points at light speed. I mean, it's happening so fast. But for us, it's like, oh, well, I've been walking my whole life. It's easy. But actually, just standing is an incredible feat that took these robotics guys so long to figure out, right?
It's taken them a long time.
Yeah. What do we do about, you know, professional sports or just playing sports in general? Should we all just be barefoot? Would it be that much better? Because, I mean, I'm thinking about, you know, I'm coming down, like you said, spraining my ankle. It's usually landing on someone else's foot. That's nothing really you
it's
can
funny
do.
that you asked that, because the other day I think Jeff and I were talking, and he had a shoe that he had in the office. I used to play in these. Can you imagine? Can you believe this? And it was I think it was a basketball shoe, and we kind of started, you know, really talking about what shoe would you actually use today to play basketball. Let's say, you know, you decide to play in a league, and what would you wear? You know,
I have my theories on this. Like most
World
other things.
exclusive.
Hollowed out shoes. Like, what do you do?
So first of all, you have to define what your ultimate goal is, right? Like, are you an athlete who's competing to win for a certain reason, right? Like money, whatever, you know, pro athlete. Or are you everybody else who's just trying to live a long, healthy, independent life? Okay? Once you figure out what that is, then that helps guide you on what you're going to do in the moment. So, right, let's say today you go play basketball. First of all, your foot is not ready for the forces that are coming at it, and your proprioception is not there yet. So, I would recommend wearing the basketball sneaker. Because if not, you're going to do a lot of damage to yourself.
Yeah.
Likely. You may not, but you probably will. But at the same time, start working towards getting to that place where you don't need that shoe anymore. And eventually, when you feel very ready, then you don't need it anymore. And you can wear any of these things to play basketball and you will be fine. But, you know, if you're trying to live a long, healthy life, you're better off without the sneakers. But if you're not ready for it and you still want to perform that activity, then protect yourself.
Yeah, I made the transition. I mean, not playing barefoot sports yet, not yet, but where I went from, you know, okay, well, I need to have these mid tops or high tops. It's going to protect the ankle, and I'm still getting ankle sprains. Remember, high school and college, it was just so common. In commonplace, it's just going to happen. Nothing you can do about it. And I start working on, you know, my ankle mobility, and then I'm wearing low tops. Maybe I'll add a little bit of tape when you play. And now, I mean, I can go on a court. You see those Chuck Taylors or whatever, the flat shoes, and I can go run, I can go jump, dunk a basketball, and I won't sprain my ankle. I'm not going to land on anybody's leg. I also think I have the, not great, but better sensory awareness in the feet, walking around barefoot. I'll walk to the park in the morning to exercise and back. But I think it's like you said, we were talking about earlier, the Achilles tendon, but especially with the ankle and putting the ankle in those positions that you don't normally get to put it in.
Right.
And so when you hit that injury or you hit that wall, it's not going to happen, or your body already knows where it's been or how it can extend to those points to protect itself. Am I talking truth?
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, look, there's no
Like that, my tangent's confirmed.
Absolutely.
this hasn't really been researched so specifically that we can say, okay, well, the research says this or the research says that. But I mean, we can make some sort of inferences about what's okay and what's pushing the limit. You know, it's about you being in tune with your body and being honest with yourself about where you are in your state of fitness, specifically around the lower extremities. Do you feel comfortable going out there without any support right now?
One of the things is you said though is in tune with your body. That's something that I understand. He understands. You guys understand. Maybe a few people who played athletics understand. But most people, when you say that, to them it's like some hoopty thought, like in tune with my body. What does that mean? Because they're not in tune with their body. They don't understand. So to them it's like, I don't understand what this person's saying.
It could be just like touching yourself. Like, oh, okay, let me touch my arm here. Like, oh, this.
Well, we get that.
There's something in there.
Yeah.
Other people don't understand that.
It's not even a spiritual thing. It's just, a physical idea.
Right, it's like
Like,
I have to meditate to feel
They've
every
been eating
cell
so
in my
much
body.
sugar that.
Right.
Wait,
so
does sugar? Wait, just quick. What is nutrition? How does nutrition come into play with your feet, if anything?
Huge. I mean, nutrition is key for anything, but when it comes to the lower extremities and sort of the way the nerves connect down to, these are really long nerves, right?
Yeah.
And we all know that, or most of us know, or not even most of us, some of us know that sugar, high levels of sugar in your blood actually start to cause a lot of damage to your nerve cells, right? So you eat that big piece of bread that looks so delicious, and I've been eating bread my whole life. It's not going to cause any problems.
So good.
That sends your blood sugar levels through the roof. Your insulin goes through the roof, and then your nervous system starts to basically degenerate slowly.
Does it include the ability to feel like sensors when you
I'm sure
like?
it puts
Does
some
it do
kind of
that?
inflammation.
Well, if once
That's
the
what
nerve
sugar's
is
doing.
Yeah, it does that.
once the nerve is damaged enough, that's it. It's gone, and it's gone. I mean,
It's true. I know. I can't feel in my finger. I have actually shoe story. So I was climbing a fence, yeah, and I put I had my basketball shoes on, and I've climbed this fence as a kid all the time, and it's got these sort of pokers that stand up. I put my shoe down in between to jump over, and having this monster shoe on, it gets caught. So I fall down, and my natural reaction is put my hand down, and it goes through the fence, and actually my shoe was so horrible that it snapped in half, and that's the only reason that I came out. Otherwise it might have just went through my entire body. So having a horrible shoe got me in trouble, but then also saved me at the same time.
well, so I trained at Jackson Hospital, and that's like one of the number one trauma hospital. It's level 1. We saw all the craziest cases. And most people, in Miami is a place where people get hit by cars all the time. It's probably the number 1 city in the country for pedestrian hit by cars.
They need zebras.
The people who survive getting hit by a car are the really, really fat people.
Really?
Because they're protected. They have cushion. I swear.
Absorbing shock? Like
This is, I mean, there was, I remember one woman, she was like 450 pounds or more. She was sitting at a bus stop. She got hit straight on by a car and survived where nobody should have survived that. And you see it over and over again. It happens. So these things that are killing you slowly sometimes actually work to your benefit.
That's not a suggestion to be fat.
Take
Exactly.
care of yourself.
Enjoy
how,
your life.
How are you guys on time? I know we booked you guys till 4. Is everything good? Good. More time?
I can do this like all day.
Yeah.
Just had to check in with you guys. What was I gonna go with the next one? It's where do you see? No. What do you
Yeah.
got?
No. What's the future? What's your ideal future? 30 years from now in foot health and in the barefoot movement.
So I think it's just about bringing more awareness to that area of the body. I think that where we are today, people are really starting to understand the importance of good food, exercise, staying active, but the lower extremity, specifically foot and ankle, is sort of one of these missing links that people aren't really talking about. So we hope that it just becomes part of that whole lifestyle. Everyone talks about the psychological, the nutritional, the physical, but they don't talk about that specifically. So a future where this is just common practice, that we include the feet and the ankles in the conversation, and that the companies that have tons of power start to shape up, right, and do the right thing, and look at the research, because there's not a single research study that proves that any of these technologies, right, these quote unquote technologies that they're putting in their shoes are good for you. There's actually a lot of research that proves that it's bad for you, but it's not coming from people with billions of dollars. So the research is not really coming out, although now you're seeing more and more. So they have the documentary about how bad certain foods are for you. They have the documentaries about how bad tobacco are for you. They have the documentaries about how bad phaa is and how bad the medical device industry is. And
that's our next documentary. Serious.
I'm gonna put it out there, but I think it's at some point it's gonna come. Whether we do it or someone does it, there will be a documentary on the footwear industry, and it's incredible. Sort of just ability to not give a shit about how the impact of the products that they're selling to people.
What about Nike? They're making the shoe, or I know they're designing courses, and the Berlin Marathon's coming up, and they have somebody who can run a 2-minute mile or 2-hour marathon. It's one of the two.
What is that graphite thing
Something
that was coming out?
with the shoe, or with the way
it's the
course
Fly, Zoom, Air, whatever they call it.
Yeah.
But okay, if you're going to compete to win, there are certain things that can give you a little bit of an advantage, right? Maybe designing a shoe a certain way, but every step you take in that shoe is working against you in the long run. So again, if you're competing to win, put on the cleats, put on the Nike running shoes, put on whatever it is that's going to give you that edge, but understand that you're causing yourself, you're taking years off your life down the road, which is the same thing that NFL players do, NBA players do. They sacrifice their bodies. These people are not healthy.
Yeah.
We think that they're healthy.
Except LeBron.
We think that they're healthy, right? Because they look strong and they look like they're in great shape, and they could probably play basketball or whatever for hours and hours, and
they're warriors.
They can beat us.
Look at me.
They could die in war. I view them as gladiators. They could. But Roman warriors. They could die in battle, but also they could be glorious and have a much better life for their
families. Exactly.
Families,
They're sacrificing, and what the exchange for them is their bodies.
Yeah.
They're sacrificing their bodies for the good of, like you said, their families, their friends, the people that they support.
Here's the positive that I see in it, right? I look at, I was thinking back on sort of the ketosis and how quickly that thing moved into, becoming a diet that everyone used. And then I look at conversations like this. We have clout, we have an audience of people that we can share it. Me and him, we don't care what people think. So we're going to go out there and not wear shoes. And at first people are going to look at us funny. And then after a while, rapidly, I think people will start not wearing shoes also. It's what always happens.
Those are going to be great in New York.
I think this is going to happen quickly.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen quickly as well.
I agree, and you're already starting to see it. I think if you probably did one of these Google analytics search, you'll probably see that the rate of these types of topics being searched is going up and up every day. There's going to be that the tipping point, right? Malcolm Gladwell's tipping point. It's going to happen in this world too. I'm very excited about it because I'm already starting to see it in my intimate circles, right? I'm already starting to see. At first, people were just ignoring me. I would put out all these things and I wouldn't get much feedback. Then they were kind of laughing at my different shoe choices, and then starting to fight me a little bit about you're an idiot. This makes no sense. Like, shoes are great. These people are making amazing shoes, Adidas, Nikes. And then now my friends are all starting to call me saying, hey, how do I order a pair of these things? I got to see what this is about. Like I have to. I think this kind of starting to make sense.
How much is that you surrounding yourself with, similar people to actually a trend happening? Because I think every time we, especially do something that better our bodies or better our minds or our well-beings, we seem to be pushing ourselves towards an area of people who are also geared towards that.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing is, I have a lot of friends, and a lot of them are wellness people that I love to surround myself with. But I also have my friends from forever, from just growing up, family, friends that I've known my entire life, and they're all tuning in, right? The wellness people have a much easier time, or we're a much quicker turnaround, but the general, what we'll call general population of my friends are all starting to sort of key in and ask questions, and they wanna see what this is about because it just makes sense. I mean,
the positive elements of Instagram. These are the positive parts of social media. Extremely positive parts of social media.
No, we love social media because it gives us a platform to just show the world what's going on. We're very active on social media.
That's why we're huge fans too, because you can learn something like this that maybe I would have never seen 10 years ago ever. I would have never known.
Yeah, the rate of exchange of information is incredible right now.
Doc, well, the same thing to you. You've been in the industry for a long time. What have you seen that has actually changed, or trends that are moving towards? Going back to the beginning of the conversation, we're talking about, what's happening that's different. Like you guys said, you've been doing the platelet stuff for about 10 years now. Where do you see it moving? What's changed?
One of the things that Jeff and I are always talking about is, we talk about the preventative podiatry and how we can sort of mend the barefoot movement to what I do. You okay there, big guy?
I'm good.
He's okay.
That's what happens if you let him stand up. That's why we usually have chairs.
Right.
I'm a little still new to the lacrosse ball,
but it's working.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting. How do we? Of course, I went to medical school, and then I did a surgical residency. I have that surgical mindset as well. So it's been also not necessarily challenging, but educating myself on this whole entire barefoot movement. It's been very interesting for me personally. So I've gotten away from shoes more and more. I'm more I'm using Vivos, and I've been using Skinners consistently now for not very long, but I'm really feeling great. And I think there's ways to do things, and there's ways to do things. I think that for me personally, educating my patients, depending on clinical presentations, I think that working and having the right people on board, like Jeff, just give him a plug, Jeremy Abramson also, who's part of our team, I think makes it a lot easier to for these patients that are coming in for something to maybe try something else that may not be as invasive. So I think it's very stimulating to be able to get something totally, completely at the end of the spectrum, different facet into what we do, but the forecast looks really healthy. It's very, very exciting.
Yeah.
And we've been able to integrate all the other things that I've been doing for the last 10 years. Including the regenerative medicine, including, pretty much everything in the scope of what we do, being able to integrate all those things into this really exciting, not new, but new to us. It's been very exciting. Yeah. And we'll continue to do so. We'll pave, and we'll continue to pave.
So I'm actually curious to hear from you, from a practice management standpoint, how things have changed. Talking about social media and the digital world. I know that you started in a time where that wasn't a thing.
Well, absolutely. I'm 40 years old, turning 41 this upcoming November, and when we first started this sort of second venture, the JAWS healthcare, JAWS podiatry, at least my generation, for me, was a little bit, as a physician, it was okay to have, let's just say, a website, and that's about it. But no one really ever taught us, or I guess no one really talks about how important and what a vital role social media plays in medicine. Let's be very clear, medicine is a business, and I've always seen medicine as a business, but one of the very important things that I'd never really thought about was how important social media continues to be. And to answer Jeff's question, it's basically changed everything that we do. I mean, in a matter of months, it's not years, not 2 years. We're talking a year, maybe a little bit less. So it's been a game changer, without a doubt. So if there are any physicians or any business owners out there that are listening to this cast, I urge them to do their due diligence and look into how important it is to integrate social media into what you do in your career. It's a game changer. It really is.
Yeah. So JAWS, we started JAWS Podiatry a couple of years ago, and I came in as the sort of the business guy, right? He's the clinical guy. I'm the business guy, and I understand the world a little differently than most physicians, because this could be a long conversation, but doctors don't get trained on how to run a business ever. Not one class. There's not one class in medical school that talks about these things, and it's unfortunate because most doctors become small business owners, and a lot of them fail because they don't know what they're doing. But basically, I came in with the business mindset, the sort of startup tech approach, very culture minded, and I wanted to implement all of these changes into our digital presence, and Abby and his wife were very, very hesitant about it. They were, it looked like a lot of money to start spending to get a digital marketing team and to, start to put all these things together. And, at the beginning, they were like, you see, this was a bad idea because it wasn't, but we have to.
Growth takes a little time.
Right, it takes time. And then, and now we're seeing, we're almost surpassing our referral count with our referrals from the internet. So most of our business usually comes from primary care doctors who they see their patient and they say, okay, it looks like you need to see a podiatrist. I'm going to refer you to whoever they like the most.
Yeah.
And he has a great reputation in the community, so he gets a lot of referrals from doctors everywhere. But the internet is a much bigger audience. So we're starting to see now that we're at the point where our referrals from the internet and from primary care are almost the same. And I have a feeling that it's going to start.
Especially as our generation gets older, right? Because where are we searching? We're less going for referrals.
Without a doubt. Yeah, exactly. Now, without a doubt, I mean, we're talking for a while I thought it was, it's because maybe the younger people are, but it's not even that. Myself, I like to, when I see my patients and I ask them, who referred them to see us, the internet, the Google, your reviews, and your Yelp, and
the Google. You got me with that one.
And then all of a sudden, clearly I look at their age as well, and it's not, let's just say, the millennials. It's not your 20s, and it's not your. We're talking people from all walks of life, from all ages. In their 60s that are looking. They're the consumer is their approach, as we all know here in this room. The consumer is becoming very, very crafty and very smart. They're doing their due diligence. It's not like it used to be. So it's very important to have a really robust and a reputation online. Extremely important. It's very, very important, and
Yeah.
we'll just leave it at that.
I do one more question about your online presence, because I know like the videos you guys make about the ingrown toenails. they're great.
They're fantastic.
You know, it's funny. You know, people, and maybe from a non-clinical perspective, maybe you guys can tell me. You know, for the layperson to see whether it's someone popping a pimple or someone removing an ingrown nail or whatever it is, people are fascinated by certain things, and it's very, we talk about it all the time. We've put out some really nice, videos, from ingrown toenails. Thanks to Jeff Shub's expertise using, editing and learning how to do all these wonderful things. But it's incredible. We have videos that, we've surpassed 1 million views, things that I myself would never imagine. But it really is truly remarkable. I mean, but then I truly, just like the other day, I saw someone put out a video of something and it just goes viral. And all of a sudden, we're getting people from Australia, from the other side of the earth, that are, liking, subscribing to our YouTube channel. And it really is incredible. It really is. How you're able to scale from a peanut into something huge, just germinates.
And it doesn't hurt that he's great on camera.
He is great. Noticed that when I first met him. Great presence. What was I going to ask? Is there any ingrown toenail sessions coming up soon?
Let me take a look at your feet.
No.
Oh.
In office or in session, we can come in there. And,
You guys want to come watch?
I might want to see the process.
I think it would be great for us to do a collaborative video too, like to watch
Let's
the
do it.
process. And 100%.
I think that's a great idea. Actually, you can't predict it, right? Like, people make appointments, and most of the time we know why they're coming in, so we might be able to have a little bit of lead time. But it's just, I'm gonna have to just look at the schedule one day and say, hey guys, we have one, and you don't know if it's a good one. I mean, let's be honest. Like, there's ingrown toenails, and there's a really good ingrown toenails, and like we get really excited about those now at the office, because we know that for some reason people that they say ingrown toenails are the new pimple popping, and they you already know where that's gone. That she has their own show now, but hey, if you have an ingrown toenail, we'll take care of it, and we'll make you an awesome video.
Yeah, anyone out there, ingrown toenails, these are your guys.
I think it's cool.
And the truth is, I've always said it. I told Jeff, the proof is in the pudding. We've put out some great videos on, live in surgery to, all these regenerative procedures, and try to really do the coolest procedures, minimally invasive, and at the end of the day, the videos that are really that people really are looking for and are, watching are the ingrown toenails.
Yeah. You never know what's going to go viral.
I can show you our YouTube page, and it's I don't get it. Like, we have these really awesome videos about PRP and about all these things, and still, we might get maybe a couple thousand views. The ingrown toenails, 5 figures or more always. Like,
same thing with our videos. Like, this is not that good of a video we put out on Monsoon, Ecuador.
Yeah, that's the one that goes viral.
It's the number 2 ranked video for Carnival in Ecuador. Go look at that, and just that's where we're getting our views.
It really is interesting, but I think it's also fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, for anyone out there.
And anybody in the world has the opportunity to reach the entire world, and I think it's a really awesome opportunity to just, you can make anything these days.
We have a final segment where we ask questions that we're interested in.
I don't know if I got any more. You got any more?
I got one. What is your favorite toe?
That's a fascinating question. That's a great question. I've never been asked that.
Welcome on the bus.
I think I guess my favorite toe would probably be the great toe, which is, the hallux, the great toe. And I'll tell you why. Not because it's my favorite, but because, without it, and a lot of people don't know this, but without it, you can't walk to a certain point. So, we do see a lot of patients with diabetic ulcerations and vascular disease, and sometimes you have to, unfortunately, to control infection, sometimes you have to amputate the toe. But nonetheless, without the great toe and without the sesamoids, which are actually two little eggshell little bones underneath, you can't walk. So I guess because of that, it would probably be the most important toe. How about that?
It's fascinating.
It 100% is the most important toe for many, many reasons, and mostly because of how it allows you to walk. But I think the second toe is fascinating because people always sort of look at people's second toe to see if it's longer than the big toe.
First thing I look at.
And for people out there that don't know, that foot type is called the Morton's type foot, where the second toe is actually longer than all the other toes. And
That's you.
So is it like inner and outer belly buttons? Like, what are people whose second toe aren't longer than their first?
it means not a lot.
Not a lot. You
Means
sure?
nothing.
I actually think it has a lot to do with the shoes because the
Well-
point of the shoe is actually where the second toe is. So your foot adjusts. So a lot of people, their big toe turns into like a bunion. So it looks shorter, but it's actually long. And then so again, people who don't wear shoes, the bunions are not a issue in cultures where there's no shoes. So that's another thing about shoes that suck. That they all sort of the shoe comes up in the middle, like at the front. It creates a center point. So all your toes, when they go in, they go like that.
Yeah.
And the farthest point is actually where the second toe is, and I think that actually is why in a lot of people the second toe turns out to be longer than all the other ones, because all the other ones sort of curl down, and the big toe also, and the second one's the one that stays.
Especially over time after you wear shoes.
Exactly,
for a certain amount
over
of
time.
years.
It's not like your fingers. Your fingers. So if you're the discrepancy between your ring finger and your index is based on the amount of testosterone you have in the womb. So if you have really close together fingers, in length, then you're like the ratio, then you have less testosterone than if you have a longer ratio. And it turns out the studies show the better ratio, like the longer the distance, the better looking people are, the higher IQ that they are, those kinds of things. Less openness, but hey.
Yeah, definitely less open.
There's a ton of signals and things in our bodies, and a lot of them we don't even know yet, but that really tell a really interesting story about development and about the sort of experiences that you've had throughout your life. And I think that I'm already getting to the point where I can tell a lot about a person's sort of shoe history by looking at their feet. I can really tell.
You're looking at their feet and know everything about who they are. Like,
Yeah.
know their whole life.
Yeah, like I know their favorite color.
Blue.
Guys, thank you so much again for stepping in. Thank you for taking time out of your day. Really appreciate it. And if you guys can go ahead and plug away,
Plug away.
from Jaws, Urban Barefoot,
Okay.
Dr. ToeJam.
Okay, I'll take that. First of all, thank you guys. We're starting to get into this podcast world, and it's really fascinating. It's a lot of fun. I've had a great, I don't even know how many hours we've been in here at this point.
That'll happen.
But thank you. Hopefully more to come in the future. We're on most of the platforms. You go on Facebook, Jaws Podiatry, Twitter, Jaws Podiatry. On YouTube, it's Jaws Healthcare. That's where all the fun ingrown toenail videos are. You can check them out. On Instagram, Dr. ToeJam is our main page, which mostly focuses on his work and the other doctors in our practice. The Urban Barefoot is our sort of study of the transition to barefoot. A lot of super interesting content there. What else? You can find us, on LinkedIn. You can find us everywhere. My name's Jeff Shub, Abraham Wagner. And, there's a ton of other people to plug, but I don't.
You can find us at Yellow Green Farmers Market on Saturdays and Sundays without shoes.
Absolutely.
That place is awesome. That place is
Best place
actually
in the world.
awesome.
Best place in the world.
We shot a video.
We just
there
did
last
a
week,
major
yeah.
video there.
Amazing. That was my first time was 2 weekends or last weekend. Incredible place. I look forward to going back there.
Guys, thanks
Barefoot.
again. And everybody else for listening to this podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you listen to shows. You can find our show. Make sure you guys go do that. Leave us a review if you love the show. 5 stars only. If it's 1 star, keep it to yourself. Email us. You can let us know how bad it is. And we're going to do such a better job next time. You're going to write a better review. And we're going to make it better and make that show better for you guys. And, guys, make sure you go check out our YouTube channel, On the Bus Podcast. We got plenty of videos coming out. And we're working on bigger and better stuff, whether it's in New York, L.A., Miami, Austin. Pay attention. Hit that subscribe button. And let us know if you have some amazing ideas or new people to have on the show. Anything else?
Green Roads World, Amazon portal.
The Green Roads World. Guys, make sure you get your Green Roads World CBD oil over on the, not on the bus podcast, but greenroadsworld.com. Use promo code on the bus. That's 15% discount. Do lowercase, one word, ONTHEBUS. And give yourself, your friends, family, your loved ones, your pets too. You can get your pet stuff now. The gift of good health today. Green Roads World CBD oil. And make sure you go out and see, if you're going to shop on Amazon.com, go to the portal at onthebuspodcast.com. Click on there, shop there. Thank you everybody who has done that. You've been a great support to this show, getting to where it is today. And guys, you guys, thanks again, man. Thanks for coming on the bus.
Go to that Amazon portal.
Appreciate
Get some
it.
of these incredible shoes.
Bust out,
The
guys.
shoes that put your feet on the ground.
Wouldn't it be crazy? Don't you still amaze me? Wouldn't it be crazy? Don't you still amaze me? If I find my way home, yeah.
This is the move for those who